Chapter 25, Black Blade of Vengeance. First War of Falling, roughly 200,000 years ago. The armies of the Anshar realm continue their bloody conflict, brother against brother. The Yazata turn their swords upon one another. The former general of the Second Choir and director of the Heirloom Archives, Sane, continues the battle against his one-time companions. The war is raged across 3 heavenly worlds, reducing them to ruin, before coming to the Kishar realm, to a world that will one day be known as the Earth, for its conclusion. The leader of the opposition stands before his top officers strategizing. The soldiers call him the Truth and the Great Emancipator. The Seraphim call him the Traitor and Sin. As the war rages on, the tide begins to turn in favor of the Seraphim, due to their greatest warriors, the Archgenerals Mikhail and Sataniel. We are in a very critical place. Mikhail's forces alone outnumber us, but should General Sataniel and the 13th Choir join the battle, our losses would be total, advises Saint's Chief of Military, the former captain of the 4th Choir, Olenel. Saint paces, trying desperately to come up with a strategy after losing 2 critical battles in a row in nearly half of his remaining army. After rebelling and leading hundreds of thousands of Yazata in defection, only around a fourth of them now remain. The battles have been fierce, and casualties have mounted on both sides. Now that this war draws to a close, Saint finds his options become less palatable by the second. Can we break through Mikhail's camp for the mountains? In the narrow places, their numbers advantage would be negated, Saint says. Olenel shakes his head. We would become trapped between Mikhail and General Remuel, who approaches from the north. Standing our ground and dying, or running and still being killed, Saint whispers. Neither is a choice I wish to make. You could surrender and throw yourself at their mercy. No more of our brethren would have to die. Saint laughs, startling Olenel with his cold attitude. I could not care about that any less. So long as I have made my point, they can all perish. The Creator has surely taken notice of my influence, and the message that I have delivered. He would not have made such a show of force, were he not intimidated by my rebellion. You would really let everyone who follows you die, just to prove a point? They gave up everything because they believe in you, and what you have to say about the injustice and slavery institutionalized by the Creator. They have all served their purpose, Saint says, staring out at the camp. Soon this war will have its conclusion, whether we are successful or not. Was victory ever your goal? Olenel's heart is broken after learning that his ideological hero does not care for his troops. Mikhail's strength is most formidable. Even our strongest have fallen to him, says Saint. What chance do we have? Asked Nevos, Saint's closest advisor and a former Heirloom mage. We must find a way to turn his strengths against him, Saint thinks of the arrogant general and balls his fists in anger. He thinks himself so perfect. We shall bring him down with great humility, a spell to enchant his army, and turn them against him would attack his personal care for his troops, and force him to submit. No, our magics are useless against them. They can just wave them off with their own magic. We need something much stronger. What do you suggest, my lord? Gather all that remains of our army in the Valley of Ohm, but send our strongest off on reconnaissance. Yes, my lord. I will forge a weapon that will turn all of the strengths of our enemies against them. Saint rallies his army together, but instead of giving them a stratagem, an inspiring speech, his intentions are much more sinister. My brothers, Saint says, standing above the soldiers upon a high ridge. You have made incredible sacrifices in order to stand up for what you believe. Many of our allies have been murdered simply because their ideology was different from that of our oppressors. The generals are not only complacent in the suppression of different opinions, they're enforcers of evil and prejudice. We are one day going to be proven correct in our rising up against this unjust and oppressive regime. Loud cheers rise up from the massive crowd. Nebos walks around the soldiers with several other Sangam chanting. Many of the mages carve elaborate spell circles into the earth around the valley. While some of the soldiers gathered find this procession strange, most assume it to be some kind of invocation or blessing to guide them in the upcoming battles. A handful of the army excuses themselves from the group, leaving the circles. An advisor whispers to Sane, noticing the defectors from the crowd. "My lord, shall we use force to make them return to the circle?" Sane laughs. "No, I commend their intuition. Those are the sort of independent-thinking warriors I wish to have serving me. Besides, we would only create greater suspicion in prohibiting anyone from leaving the valley." The ground begins to glow brightly around the circles as the spell activates. The soldiers find out, to their own horror, that they are unable to move. Sparkles of energy rise up from the circles as they form a brilliant spell array. "Despite all of our sacrifices, we are still losing this war." The soldiers are more concerned with the spell circle and do not pay any attention to Sane's words. "This will be the final sacrifice I require of you. Alone, each of you could never sway the tide of battle." Sane grins. "But together, you will give me all the power needed to destroy our enemies and take my rightful place upon the throne of heaven." The glow begins to swallow the Yazata, converting each into millions of sparkles of light. Within the circle, billions of lights dance like fireflies, unable to flee. The spell forces the light energy together, compressing it into a single solid form. "Recall the soldiers sent away," Sane orders. "As soon as the metal is worked around this energy and my weapon is forged, we will launch our attack on General Mikhail's camp." As soon as Sane goes down into the valley to inspect the condensed energy, the light transforms into a pulsating black orb. He leaps backwards, startled. "What is this?" Sane asks. "Why has it changed form?" The Sangam are equally puzzled. "The light no longer feels divine," one observes. "It is as if the energy has been corrupted by our spell." Sane grabs the Sangam by the throat. "Are you telling me that I sacrificed 90% of my army for nothing?" "No," the Sangam says, terrified. "The energy should still be sufficient. It may have changed form, but it still feels just as powerful." Sane releases him, still angered. "Continue with the plan, but if you are wrong and this weapon is useless, you will be the first to die." Sane's forces charge into the camp, overwhelming many of Mikhail's soldiers in surprise. Blades clash all around in this last battle of the First Great War. Both sides fight furiously, leaving nothing held back. A Seraphim rushes Sane with an overhead slash, but the rebellion leader blocks with a barrier spell, before impaling the foe with his newly forged blade. As the soldier falls, the wound left by the Banu Kazka turns black and rotten. Instead of exploding into light, the body of the Seraphim remains lying on the field of battle. "Mikhail!" Sane shouts loudly. "Come out and face me!" General Mikhail exits his tent, strapping his angelic blade to his hip in a hurry. "Have you come to surrender?" He begins to see the carnage unfolding all around him and tenses in anger. "Surrender?" Sane laughs. "I am winning this war, so why would I ever surrender to you?" We have you outnumbered over 1,000 to 1, Mikhail replies. There is no victory for you to attain. My victory is on the battlefield of ideals. Even those loyal to the Creator still have thought on my messages, and those seeds of doubt will one day sprout into an even larger rebellion. Mikhail draws his sword. A rebellion that you will not be alive to witness. Perhaps, Sane says as he produces his own weapon. The sword is wielded with 2 hands, and each end holds a black blade. Or perhaps it will be I who ends your life today on this battlefield, and goes on to be victorious. Mikhail finds Sane's confidence amusing. As general of the 2nd Choir and leader of the Heirloom, Sane was ranked among his peers as the weakest of all the 13 generals in strength. Facing Mikhail, who is ranked at 1st, is akin to suicide. I am not some fool that you can manipulate with your words, Sane. I shall let our swords do all the talking for us. Around them, Mikhail's soldiers are far more skilled in combat, and in one-on-one bouts, they easily fell their opponents. While the 2 factions clash, the Sangam sages sneak about the camp, begin outlining the same large spell array used to create the Banu Kazka. A few soldiers manage to catch sight of the mages and kill them before they are able to complete their task. Mikhail's army surrounds what is left of Sane's forces, corralling them into a tight circle where their maneuverability is limited. Of the 500 chosen by Sane for the assault, only a little over 100 of them now remain. Mikhail's second-in-command, Abraneal, stands before the defeated force, sheathing his sword with overconfidence. Drop your weapons, Abraneal says. This battle, and by extension the war, is over. Mikhail turns to Sane, taking a deep breath. Your army has been beaten. Surrender and be spared. Sane refuses to relent, keeping the Banu Kazka outstretched. I am not even close to defeat. Mikhail laughs in pity. Look around you, Sane. You have been utterly defeated. There are not enough of your soldiers left to take this camp, even if you did manage to defeat me by some fluke. Drawing a golden horn, Sane signals for reinforcements lying in wait, just outside the camp to converge on the area. With Mikhail's army gathered around their prisoners in a circle, Sane's reinforcements find it easy to distinguish friend from foe and attack fiercely in surprise. Abraneal gives the order to execute the prisoners, but Sane flashes to a side with Shunkonito, slashes through the neck of the Seraphim, taking his head clean off with a single swipe. How can you raise your weapons against your brethren? Mikhail asks, disgusted and heartbroken by the continued loss of life. He does not notice the body of the slain warrior has not disappeared. Hypocrite! Sane yells. You cut down my soldiers with your swords with equal ferocity and complete indifference. Sane lunges, swiping the Banu Kazka horizontally at head level. Using Shunkonito, Mikhail dodges the attack and thrusts his own sword forwards in a stab. Sane tilts his weapon, blocking Mikhail's attack. Sparks leap from the blades of the 2 warriors as they strain against each other. Stop following the Creator's orders blindly, Sane begs. I was just like you until my eyes were opened to the greater truths. There are many aspects of creation that you are oblivious. God keeps us ignorant, because one that is ignorant is easier to control. Mikhail throws his free hand out, charging up an orb of divine energy. Sane matches the gesture, their 2 attacks colliding in a brilliant explosion. With Shunkonito, both Yasuto avoid the inferno. Everything you know about our history is a lie. You're being manipulated, Sane shouts emotionally. It was never my desire to turn my hand against you. I want nothing more than to save my brothers from his oppression. Your loyalty to God is being repaid with only betrayal. Mankind is being groomed to inherit all of the love and blessings that we have earned through our unwavering devotion for millennia. If that is his will, I shall carry it on without question, Mikhail says defiantly. Fool! I am trying to remove from you the yoke of slavery! Saint screams, black energy swirling around his body. Do you not see that you have become corrupted? That black sword is making black your very soul. I have not been corrupted. I have transcended. Truth has awakened me. The veil has been lifted from my eyes, and I am reborn as the one and only rival to God. Black wings of energy unfold from Saint's back. I have become wiser and more powerful than him. Yet unlike him, I am willing to do whatever it takes to achieve my goals. Saint darts towards Mikhail, slashing furiously. Mikhail parries each blow, wincing in pain against the strength of his enemy's swings. The Seraphim General is pushed back as he fights not to lose any more ground. Mikhail whispers, enchanting his sword with glowing Yazdan symbols. Lightning flashes from the General's blade, knocking Saint to his back. Electrical sparks crackle around Saint, and the leader of the opposition growls with anger. You do not even know the cause for which you are struggling. You are being used, and yet you continue to espouse the same tired doctrine of a god that cares for you not. Mikhail alters the design of the symbols on his blade, unleashing a wall of flames upon his enemy. With a single swing, Saint disperses the attack. Give this up! I do not desire to see any more of my brothers die. Saint shakes with emotion and adrenaline. The power of the Banakaska flows through him, supercharging the Yazata. The same chance is extended to you. Lay down your weapon and submit to arrest. Hissing with fury, Saint rushes Mikhail and resumes their duel. The two Yazata flash across the battlefield, swords colliding again and again with incredible force. Mikhail tries to slow his enemy down by conjuring stone walls from the earth, but Saint cuts through the obstructions with ease. As he breaks down the final stone wall, Saint is greeted by a large animated suit of armor. The conjured soldier brings down a massive battle axe that Saint holds at bay above his head with the Banu Kazka. Yield, Mikhail says, pushing his conjurer to exert more force upon his foe. Saint's legs tremble, but he remains erect. I refuse! Mikhail puts his sword out towards Saint. Then I pass this final judgment upon you. Releasing divine energy in the form of a phantom sword, Mikhail intends to end the rebellion via impalement. With a burst of extra strength, Saint pushes the battle axe upward and quickly dodges the phantom sword with Shunkonito. The conjured knight collapses, dissolving away into a mist. Behind where the knight was standing is Saint, Banukazka outstretched. It was clever to feign diminished resources, but they too are dwindling, Mikhail says. Around them, Mikhail's army once again has regained the advantage. Saint ignores him, attempting a stab to the gut, but the more experienced warrior slaps the attack aside with his sword. Sparks jettison from the two blades as each impact. Saint pivots, sweeping low in an arc, but he is knocked off balance and stumbles when Mikhail delivers a kick to his shin. You are far from my equal in battle, Mikhail says, bringing his sword up Saint's back. Even with your unconventional weapon and methods, I'm still vastly superior. The rebellious Yazata shouts out in pain as his armor is rendered in two, and blood sprays out from his back. Saint turns, swinging horizontally, but Mikhail is easily able to kick the Banakaska from his hand. The general lowers his sword against Saint's throat. General Saint of the Second Choir, you are guilty of treason against the Most High. You have murdered countless of your brethren, and are solely responsible for this war, Mikhail declares. You are hereby sentenced to die. Do you wish to repent in your final moment? Saint flashes out of the battle with Shunkonito, jumping to a safer area. Mikhail follows angrily, refusing to let the rebel escape. The remaining Sangam continue their efforts to create the spell array and transform Mikhail's forces into a power-up for the Banukazka. Mikhail attacks Saint, slashing with a diagonal swing meant for execution. Saint again uses Shunkonito to dodge. Retreating into the midst of the battle, Sane falls back behind two of his soldiers in order to buy enough time to collect his weapon from the ground. Mikhail charges, cutting down the lower soldiers. The entire area begins to glow brightly. Small rocks levitate into the air, and all within the circle find it difficult to move. Even Shunkonito becomes disabled. Stronger than the mages casting the spell, both Mikhail and Sane are able to move out of the circle. Sane extends the Banukaska towards his foe, laughing hysterically. "Become my victory!" Sane laughs as the Yazda within the circle illuminate. "Fuel my blade, and give it more strength." Mikhail stares in horror at the sight of the frozen soldiers and their ominous glowing. "What madness is this? Stop your spell, Sane! I had intended for you to add your strength to my new blade, but I suppose killing you with it would be just as satisfying." "Sane, what are you talking about? What are you doing to them?" "You still do not understand? You always had power, but I am the single greatest mind in all of Anshar. My superior brain is responsible for the creation of nearly all of the magic known to our kind. Agriculture, written language, craftsmanship, poetry, art. I pioneered all of these concepts, while you and the other Arche were busy swinging your swords like savages. When I desire more strength, I do not have to train. I merely devise a method for attaining that strength." Screams fill the air as the Yazata within the circle are slowly converted into light energy. Suddenly, the glow ceases and the remaining soldiers drop to the ground, clutching their chests and gasping for breath. "What?" Sane screams in surprise. "What is happening?" General Sataniel of the 13th Choir stands at the edge of the spell array, his foot having broken the circle. "I believe that is my doing." "The favorite prince," Sane growls. "The great lord of light, the most beautiful of all beings." He spits at the Seraphim's feet. "Did I leave out any titles?" Sataniel rushes, forcing Sane back with equally fast and powerful slashes. "You forgot that I am also the conductor of the Symphony of Blades." Sane struggles, suffering cuts to both thighs and his right arm as he attempts to block Sataniel's assaults. As not only the strongest Seraphim warrior, but also an Arche General and Serum Prince, Sataniel is an elite among even the elites. With the incredible power of the Banukaska, Sane is still outclassed by the creator of both weaponry and the skills to wield them. Using Shunkonito, Sane puts distance between them and tries desperately to formulate a new strategy. With Sataniel's army now involved, the chances of reforming the spell circle are nil. Only a handful of Sane's forces now remain. "I am so superior that he flees from me, yet fought his heart out against you," Sataniel mocks Mikhail. "I can still beat you one-on-one any day," Mikhail grins. "You did not just have to witness hundreds of your soldiers being killed by a single spell." Sataniel's expression becomes grim, the dark truth of this battle settling upon him. "Then it is fortunate that I happened upon this battle when I did. Tell me, can his spell only be performed via an array?" Mikhail nods. "It seems so. His mages took a great deal of effort to try and put this trap together, and Sane was very sore when you spoiled the payoff. This senseless war must come to an end." Mikhail steadies himself, preparing for a final assault. "Once we defeat Sane, the war will be over. His forces were already in disarray, and his spell made no distinction between friend and foe. He is the only real threat remaining to resolution of this war." "Can you still fight?" Sataniel asks, seeing that Mikhail has already been battling for some time and showing signs of fatigue and injury. Mikhail nods and holds his sword out with resolve. "I am fine. Do not think for 1 second that I will allow you all of the credit for stopping this rebellion." Sataniel laughs, moving into position beside his comrade. "We both know who will do all of the work." Sane moves to attack, but instead flashes past the generals to meet Sataniel's army head-on. Swinging his black blade, the leader of the Aerolim cuts down several dozen Yazata with a single swing. Rather than cleave his enemies in two, Sane's attack seems to inflict upon the soldiers little damage. Shallow cuts that appear to be infected by a black stain are all that show on the chest of the Yazata after Sane's maneuver. One of the abilities I've given my blade is known as camaraderie, recruitment. The affected Yazata become filled with a powerful mind-altering magic that transforms them from enemy to ally. The turned soldiers attack their companions, creating total chaos. Even those thought slain earlier by Sane now rise up to join the battle as puppets of the rebellion. If I so will it, anyone cut by the Banu Casca will become loyal only to me, Sane declares. You are only witnessing a small taste of what my weapon is capable. Quickly, Sane turns more Yazda before Sataniel is able to intercept and block his next swing. Blocking with his sword, the general prevents Sane from attacking any more of his army. Overpowering him, Sane pushes Sataniel aside and attempts to cut into his back, when he is kicked in the chest and sent tumbling back by Mikhail. You are slipping, Mikhail says, awaiting Sataniel to regain his composure. Has your symphony already concluded so early? Sataniel laughs. I am merely giving you a moment to shine and appear the hero. I suggest you make use of it. Soon this battle will be over, and you will go back to be standing in my shadow. Sane slashes horizontally, hoping to cleave the generals in two. Mikhail's sword braces Sataniel's, and together they are able to deflect the Banu Casca aside. Each time Sane swings, the two Seraphim work together to make sure the attack fails. Seeing that he cannot prevail against both of them at once, Sane teleports away to gain more distance to strategize. Just as his pursuers jump to his new location, Sane releases a crescent of black energy from the Banu Casca into the air. The Seraphim appear directly in the energy's path and scream, cutting through the blast with their swords at the last instant, creating a massive explosion. In combat, only Mikhail or Uriel could ever compare to Sataniel. With two of the three most powerful Seraphim warriors against him, Sane begins to doubt that he can ever win, even with the Banu Casca. Sataniel attacks with a wave of energy from his sword, but Sane nullifies the blast with a quickly conjured mirror, and redirects it back at the Seraphim. Sataniel screams, rushing through the energy and stabbing into it with his sword. The blast detonates, with the Seraphim receiving tremendous concussive shockwaves. Sane chants quickly, conjuring a dozen stone soldiers. Each soldier wields a sword and a shield, and has the strength of an average Seraphim warrior. The soldiers split up, 6 going after Mikhail, while the others attack Sataniel. As the generals work to dispatch the conjuries quickly, Sane focuses on elemental magic to attack his foes from afar. Sataniel blocks a stone soldier's sword with his own, but is hit by a ranged bolt of electrical magic. The rogue general continues to attack in this manner, wearing down his opponents. When you can no longer defend yourselves, I will use the power of my Banu Casca to turn you against each other, Sane laughs. Drawing out his full power, Sataniel extends his energy wings and swings his sword around in a full circle. The tremendous force generated by the released Seraphim causes all 6 of the stone soldiers to disintegrate. Sane attempts an Ahura-level Aganestra blast, but Sataniel uses his superior speed to move in and grab the rogue's wrists before he can complete his spell. Without a word, Sataniel slashes his sword down across Sane. Sataniel, what are you doing? Mikhail shouts, punching a stone soldier in the face and causing its head to crumble. The general of the 13th Choir looks down to see that he has felled a member of his own choir, not the rogue. Trembling, he backs away in horror. You cannot trust your eyes, Sane laughs. My magic is the very cornerstone of the Sangam. I created most of the spells in use today. Do you really think that brute strength is any match from me? Mikhail destroys another stone warrior, ducking beneath its attack and delivering an uppercut. Block out your other senses and focus only on Sane's aura. Sataniel closes his eyes and attempts to focus, but he senses the energy of Sane all around. I cannot. He has deliberately placed his energy to throw off my senses. He has thought too many steps ahead of us. After eliminating a stone warrior, Mikhail moves to aid Sataniel, but is only attacked by 2 more. The general defeats the soldiers easily enough, but Sane teleports behind. Camaraderie, Sane whispers. Mikhail pivots, but he cannot block in time and is grazed by a powerful swing of the Banukazka. Mikhail holds his shoulder, blood dripping from the inch-long cut. A strange glow radiates out from the wound. You are now my slave, Sane laughs. With the power of recruitment, I have turned you from enemy to ally. Without hesitation, Mikhail cuts off his own arm and severs the appendage just above the elbow. I will never be your slave. While Sane is stunned by Mikhail's sacrifice, Sataniel is able to clearly see his foe and attack with full might. The general focuses his aura into his sword and releases all of it in a single wave of energy as brilliant as a shining star. The energy wave hits Sane straight on, blasting the rogue into the side of a mountain far in the distance. Sane collapses, dropping from the rubble to his hands and knees. He gasps for breath and is barely conscious. The Banukazka is just out of the rogue's reach, and he looks over at it, calculating the time it would take to grab the weapon and retaliate. Sane stretches his hand out in vain for the weapon, but all of the remaining Sangam, not part of a rebellion, appear in a circle around him. My friends, I need your assistance, he coughs. You betrayed our virtues and sacrificed many who look up to you for inspiration. A Sangam named Netriel says, all we can do now is grant you time. Time to think about all the pain you have caused. The Sangam begin to seal away their former leader, but Sane screams with one last painful lunge and manages to grab hold of the Banukazka. The nearest Sangam's head drops to the ground, but the others continue to chant. Gravity begins to increase on the rogue, and he finds it nearly impossible to move. Stone pillars drop from the sky around him in a circle, each bearing markings of sealing. Why seal him away? Mikhail asks, using the time to catch his breath. Should we not utterly destroy him, so that he can never return? The realm of Gehenna is not designed to be able to house the spirits of our kind. Sane would merely return here with Shinkonido, Netriel says. Work on correcting that problem, Sataniel growls. If our prisons cannot hold those of us who have gone rogue, they will continue to offend. Perhaps you would like to tackle the problem of increased security of Gehenna, Mikhail asks with a smile. Always trying to dump more work upon me, Sataniel sighs. Sloth is an unacceptable trait for an archer. Mikhail shrugs. I can only do so much work now that I'm crippled. Sataniel snaps his fingers, restoring his comrade's arm. No more excuses. The Sangam gather up the Banukazka in the sealed jar containing Sane's essence. If another being as wicked as Sane were able to get their hands on the Banukazka, it would be catastrophic. Sane was corrupted by too much knowledge. I do not foresee another of our brethren falling to that again, Sataniel says. We will only be stronger and more united after this war, now that we have pruned from our ranks the dead limbs. I pray that you are correct, Mikhail whispers, thinking of all those who were killed. When a Yazata is slain, they are sent to the fires of Kisei to be with the Creator in spirit. Kishar Realm, Earth, Enkidu's era. Enkidu continues to stare at the mysterious weapon. Just being in its presence makes his body feel strange. Waves of energy unlike any he has ever felt before ripple from the dual black blades. This is the Banukazka, the Yazata named Ophiel says. His armor is scuffed, dented, and shows signs of severe wear from numerous battles. While his sash indicates that he is of captain rank, Mikhail notices that he does not bear the insignia of any of the choirs. It is an ancient relic of a dark past. The Banukazka contains unspeakable power. Mikhail is speechless. He remembers the weapon very well, having seen it in combat once before. It is lost on him, however, why God has sent the weapon to be now used by Enkidu That blade was supposed to be locked away and forgotten for all time, Mikhail says. Someone would have had to have granted clearance beyond even what I have as an arche and a member of the Sarum Council to be able to access that level of the Cherubim armory. If the decision was made to bring that cursed weapon into the battle, why was I not included? For what purpose could such a dangerous weapon be needed? Does it have some special abilities or something? Enkidu asks, taking the weapon in his hands. Mikhail is about to object, but Enkidu grabs it before he can say anything. The general is suspicious of the Banu Kazka being brought to them. It is heavy, and Enkidu strains to hold its weight. I cannot fight with this, he shouts. It is as if I am trying to wield an entire tree. Ophir nods. You will have to become stronger and grow accustomed to the weapon to use it properly. We do not have the time for that. The Potestas will return to destroy this world if the Magog does not do so first, Enkidu argues. God is putting a lot of trust in you, Ophir says, obviously impressed by the man. It is rare for the Creator to invest so much in a particular mortal. To give you a chance this time, he has ordered the Potestas to be recalled. Both Enkidu and Mikhail are stricken with disbelief, nearly choking on the air. Even the Magog becomes confused by the disappearance of the remaining Potestas. Why has the Banu Kazka been chosen for use? Mikhail asks. I know that weapon better than any of the other Seraphim. I am one of only a handful to survive after seeing it in use. Its recruitment ability surely will not work on the Magog. Recruitment is not the only ability of the Banu Kazka, Ophir says. The blackened blade also has both passive and active energy absorption effects. Should the Banu Kazka deliver damage to an opponent, a portion of the target's energy is siphoned off. In addition, negative energy that is emitted in the vicinity of the Banu Kazka will be drawn to and absorbed by the blade. What? Mikhail asks, confused. I saw that weapon in use firsthand, by its very creator, and never experienced either of those additional abilities. The Sangam have continued to work with the Banu Kazka in order to find a use for the cursed blade. It was deemed to be too much of a waste to have it sitting locked away after all the lives that were sacrificed for its creation. These additional abilities are among the notable improvements they have implemented. The Banu Kazka was not supposed to ever be used again, Mikhail shouts, upset. It is the desecration of the lives that were sacrificed in its forging. That weapon was created through pure evil and born from malice. Such a thing could never be repurposed for good. The call was not yours to make, Ophir says coldly. The second choir was given ownership of the Banu Kazka after Saint's defeat. None of this makes any sense, Mikhail whispers in frustration. The second choir was disbanded and its members reassigned to the other choirs. Are you telling me that an unofficial group of Sangam sages have continued to operate as the second choir in secret, without the knowledge of the Arche or the Sarum Council? You can come to whatever conclusion you wish, but it has not changed the fact that its use has already been authorized, Ophir says. Mikhail looks over at Enkidu and nods, knowing that he cannot win this argument. Challenging a messenger of God is like challenging God's very own authority. Go ahead and take it. I will look into matters further myself. Is it a good idea for me to use this? Enkidu asks. You said that it absorbs negative energy. Would that not make it impossible for me to use my own Brahmastra technique? Your techniques will not be necessary, Ophir says dismissively. Whatever meager strategies you have come up with pale in comparison to the power of the Banu Kazka. Even a human with modest skill could best the Magog with this weapon. Where have you been? Mikhail asks, insulted. Have you not witnessed our battles against that creature? Not even the power of the heavens themselves have been able to bring it down. You insult the honor of all of your brothers with your words. Surprisingly, Ophir does not seem bothered by this at all. General, you seem to have lost sight of the scale of existence. The Magog is but a single threat to a single world. The Creator cannot waste his time with such trivial matters, when he has all the worlds and realities to manage. Still, would it not be safer for him to use? Enkidu asked, pushing the weapon towards Mikhail. He is much stronger than me in every way imaginable. Surely he would be a better suited fit for this task. If the Banu Kazka now absorbs energy, it would not be safe for a Yazata to wield. It seems they have repurposed the blade for use by mortals exclusively, Mikhail says. Ophiel nods. Because it will absorb negative energy as well, you will be simultaneously weakening the Magog and strengthening your own weapon. Evil and negativity empowers that creature. Its only weakness is a lack of fuel. Like a mighty fire, removing the fuel from its path will cause it to weaken and eventually extinguish. I will support you with magic and keep you protected from the Magog's attacks, Mikhail tells Enkidu. You get as close to it as you can and try to siphon off its energy. If you can weaken that beast enough, we should be able to finish it off. You will not engage the Magog anymore. General Mikhail, you have also been given new orders, Ophiel says. You will take Enkidu to Anshar and instruct him how to properly wield the Banu Kazka. You'll be recommissioned for the duration of this conflict. After the failures of the choirs and the Potestas to defeat the Magog, intervention was deemed necessary. Once your role as instructor is concluded, you will not return to this battlefield. The Creator bypassed the Sarum and sent a mere messenger to deliver this weapon. His rank is but a captain. One captain-level seraphim is not enough to escort the Banu Kazka. It took both myself and Sataniel working together to overpower its darkness. Should that weapon fall into the wrong hands, the results would be catastrophic. I am more than capable of defending the Banu Kazka should someone unwisely choose to try and intercept me, Ophiel says. Mikhail is caught by surprise. This messenger can read the thoughts of an archer? My mind should be far too strong for any other Yazata to infiltrate. I may hold the rank of a captain in your eyes, but I assure you that not just anyone is selected for this position, Ophiel explains. Mikhail is barely able to process what is going on. A mortal in the divine realm? This has never been done before. He does not desire to see all of his creation destroyed by the Magog. He told me this himself, Ophiel says, trying not to sound too proud of this rare occurrence. It is difficult for him to not be boosted by this honor, but knows that humility is required. He did not use an avatar or emissary? Mikhail is again shocked. Typically, God rarely appears before even the Sarum, and even then usually is within the form of an avatar to conceal his radiance. Ophiel nods. It was actually the first time that I can recall seeing him. I thought that my eyes would burn out of their sockets, he laughs. He is taking this very seriously, so we cannot delay. Without the Potestas, who will hold off the Magog from finishing off what little remains of this world? Mikhail asks. Everyone, Ophiel says, extending his arms out to include the group of Yazdan Seraphim he has brought forth. Mikhail estimates that there are no more than 30 of them assembled, and his heart sinks. My contingent was larger. We fared poorly in holding the creature back from its wrath, Mikhail says with shame. Ophiel smiles. Once again, you are too short-sighted. You must look beyond this tiny world. Can you not already sense them? They shall be here any moment now. 1,000 Yazda materialize upon the earth, their auras burning through the clouds of ash and returning light to the world. The Magog growls, spinning around to look at the shining beings now standing in the distance like a fiery beacon. Why do you need me? Enkidu asks. If you are all here and fought as one, you must surely be stronger than that beast. Ophiel nods. We may have the strength together, but all of us cannot attack at the same time, or we would cause even more destruction than the Potestas. The Creator demands that this world be saved by mortals. If humans cannot take care of this world, He says that they do not deserve to have dominion of it. Enkidu takes a deep breath, processing everything. Mikhail walks over to him, placing his hand on the man's shoulder. We need not delay. If the Creator has faith in your success, so must I. Mikhail turns to his brethren. Be safe, my brothers. We shall return as soon as I am confident in his ability to win. Be thorough, Ophiel says. Return him too soon and all of our sacrifices will be for naught. Mikhail and Enkidu vanish in a flash of light, traveling via Shinkunito to the heavenly realm of Anshar. As soon as they are gone, Ophiel sheathes his sword and steps away from the battle. Well then, he says to himself, things are about to get very heated here. I do not want to be caught up in all this pointless fighting. Ophiel suddenly vanishes with his own Shinkunito ability. Mikhail or any of the other Yazata are aware of his disappearance. The armies of the choir surge forward into battle, bombarding the Magog with divine energy and attempting to keep it overwhelmed as long as possible, to buy Enkidu the time needed to master the cursed weapon. Anshar Realm, World of Rail. Mikhail and his new pupil materialize on the open plains of the bright green world of Rail, one of the heavenly realm's sacred locations. No mortal being has ever set foot on this world before. Immediately upon arriving, Mikhail withdraws his sacred horn and blows a tune that is able to be heard only by the members of his own choir. The Yazata, Yavashael, kneels before Mikhail and bows his head in respect. Your orders, sir. I need you to investigate the second choir, Mikhail says. Sir? Yavashael is confused. The second choir was disbanded. Apparently not. I want to know who is leading the second choir and its current activities. I have a bad feeling in my gut that we are being misled. Misled? By whom? I have always feared that we never fully exposed those who remained loyal to the traitorous Sane. It is possible that those enemies have placed themselves in positions that work to actively hinder our success. Surely that cannot be. In all this time, anyone loyal to Sane or Sataniel would have made themselves known. They cannot keep a secret for this long and leave no trail. They may have made a mistake, Mikhail whispers. If the second choir is still active, then the answers might be found in the mansion of Leviite. I do not like the idea of members of Sane's former choir still actively working with the very weapons that monster created. Why keep this operation a secret? Go to Leviite and report back to me anything suspicious that you find. Yabashale nods. Yes, sir. He vanishes in a flash of light to complete his assignment. Enkidu, be cautious in using the Banokaska. If anything feels off about it, trust your instincts and cease using it immediately. We cannot risk having come this far, only to be sabotaged in the final hour. Is that what you think this is? Enkidu asks, staring down at the black blade in his hands. Some kind of trick. Can this not really defeat the Magog as he told us? Mikhail pauses, reserving his opinions. He does not want to hold the human back from his full potential. If the Banu Kaska truly can defeat the Magog, he would never want to be the reason that its wielder was unprepared for the task. I just need more information before I can come to any kind of conclusion. For the time being, we will put all of our focus into training as planned. At worst, the Banu Kaska does nothing, yet you still gain valuable training and conditioning. You discard that weapon and return to relying on your Brahmastra. But that isn't the worst that can happen, Enkidu whispers. If this is indeed a setup, then we could both be killed, and the entire world will fall to the Magog. You cannot worry about such matters right now. Clear your mind of everything. Do not think about your world or the Magog. Think only of becoming stronger. This place really is beautiful. Enkidu is amazed by the tall grass and the cloudless blue sky. This world is named Reu. From here, all grain for the Yazata is harvested. You eat? Enkidu is surprised by this. He'd always assumed that the Yazata did not have the same needs as humans. We do not necessarily require food, only divine light and mana. Food is something that we acquired from our interactions with your kind. Many foods are pleasing to our senses, and we gain enjoyment from their preparation and consumption. Enkidu struggles to keep up with Mikhail as he leads the human to an open area for them to begin their training. Why is it so hard to breathe here? Enkidu gasps, sweating profusely. The atmosphere is much different from that of your world, and the gravity is many times stronger. Laboriously, Enkidu increases his pace to catch up with the Yazata. Mikhail is impressed that the human is able to move at all. You have spent time training with Hoyles, have you not? Mikhail asks. Enkidu nods, remembering that he had difficulty adjusting to Halavan at first as well. That world also had a stronger gravity than yours. Had you never experienced this effect before, you would likely have been crushed to death upon your arrival, Mikhail adds. You forgot to mention this information? Enkidu asks, angered. I could have died just like that. Mikhail shrugs. It is not something that I pay close attention to. I am used to the different gravity and atmospheres of a great many worlds. They reach a large shrine, marked with the symbols of the first choir, the same symbol which adorns the armor of Mikhail. This is your home? Enkidu asks, connecting the symbols. Each of the choirs has its own mansion. We stage our training and activities from these worlds. Yes, Rail is the mansion of the first choir. I assumed that all the Yazda lived in one central place. That was the case a long time ago, before the two great wars. After so many betrayals, we divided ourselves to better defend the heavenly realm. Do we mortals go to one of these worlds when we die? Mikhail shakes his head. The dead cannot exist in the physical world. When a mortal passes on through the rivers of the underworld that distinguish the barrier between the living and the dead, they go on to either join the Creator in a realm that exists beyond the barriers of both Anshar and Kishar, or they go to the realm of Gehenna, hell. Only God can penetrate the barriers that separate the material worlds from Paradiso. What, then, are the spirits that manifest in our world? Enkidu asks, inquiring of the ghosts and other entities known to the mortals, whispers. The barrier between the physical and spiritual worlds is a transition world of shadows, and not nearly as powerful and absolute as the ones that separate Gehenna or Paradiso. It is in this transition world that spirits exist, when they have managed to avoid crossing the rivers of the underworld and their judgment. Enkidu thinks he understands, feeling privileged to have been entrusted with the knowledge that no other mortal likely has. The realm of the mortals, Kishar, is separated by the realm of the Yazda, Anshar, by supernatural rivers and a transitional world of shadows and spirits. Somewhere beyond this astral world lies the paradise of the Creator and the mortal souls that have gone on to join him. Try to swing it, Mikhail says, leading them up a flight of stone steps onto a vast open platform for training. Enkidu unwraps the weapon, dropping the Dahu hide to the ground. As he lifts the ancient tool, the blade clumsily crashes to the stone and cracks it. It's too heavy, Enkidu says, straining to lift the sword up. Until you can swing the Banu Kazka with ease, I have nothing to teach you, Mikhail says, turning his back and walking down the steps. Kishar realm, Earth. General Raphael drops to a knee, covered in bruises and scorch marks across his armor. Above him, dozens of his brothers dart like fireflies around the Magog. As each group is felled, another quickly rushes the beast to keep up the pressure upon it. General Haniel of the Third Choir pushes the creature back with an invisible pulse of energy, and rushes in to cleave the Magog with his diamond blade. The beast recovers quickly, sacrificing an arm to draw Haniel in close enough to transform his other arm into a spear. Just before Haniel can be impaled, The Magog is sent spiraling back from a burst of fire magic to the face. "Attack and fall back," General Uriel of the Seventh Choir shouts. "Do not stay in combat for any prolonged time, and try to be a hero. Attack and move aside for the next group's assault." Haniel is embarrassed, scowling. "Did not require your assistance." "Do not allow pride to cloud your judgment, brother. We have a duty to carry out." General Barachiel of the Fourth Choir shouts down at them, blocking the Magog from advancing with a barrier of stone. "Stop bickering and focus!" Barachiel shouts. The Magog shatters the barrier, and Barachiel is knocked out of the air by the feedback of his spell being destroyed. Haniel and Uriel attack together, rushing with a frenzy of shimmering blades. Pieces are hacked from the creature, but it rejuvenates as fast as it can be damaged. The generals are forced to break off and recover, allowing for a barrage of magical blasts from the next group to buy them some time to breathe. "Our hands are tied trying to keep this world intact," Haniel complains. "If we could unleash our full power, we would surely end this beast." "The Potestas were not restrained, and even they failed. It is not guaranteed that we would succeed," Raphael says, consuming a deep gash on his arm in the glow of healing magic. Haniel snorts, disagreeing. "At full power, we could fall upon the Magog like 10,000 suns." "I did not normally side with him, but he is right," Uriel says with a nod. "Together we are stronger than even the Potestas." "And you would also obliterate all life on this world, and all others for who knows how far. We have a plan, and we must abide by it." The Magog dodges the next magical assault and flashes through the air, striking down each Yazda with devastating blows from arms, transformed into blades. Raphael manages to bring his sword up to defend as the Magog reaches their resting place, but the creature elongates a leg to kick him in the chest past his defenses. "Go!" Haniel shouts as he sees more of his companions fall. He rushes into battle, chanting as he concentrates energy into his sword. He screams, swinging his blade and unleashing a powerful energy wave from point blank. The Magog's head and torso are reduced to atoms, leaving it smoking from the waist down. Haniel pivots, kicking the remains into the sky and firing a second blast from his sword upwards. Resting on its blade, Haniel takes a moment to catch his breath. "See? We did not need to rely on the human after all." The cloud of smoke overhead begins to flash with electrical sparks and turn black. Haniel is forced to leap backwards in order to evade the stray electrical sparks that flicker in every direction. In an instant, the Magog reforms with a deafening howl. "Barriers!" Raphael orders, sheathing his sword and throwing his hands out to join the effort of erecting a wall of stone between them and the Magog. The Magog explodes from the ground behind the Yazata, avoiding the barrier entirely. Many warriors are cut down in the confusion. Raphael turns, taking a diagonal slash across the chest. The Yazata staggers back, his armor split open. Blood and divine light leak out from the deep wound. He struggles to remain on his feet, swaying in place. His vision becomes clouded, and the general drops to a knee before the Magog. "Raphael!" Uriel shouts, running to his side. The Magog turns to block his path, growling with both arms transformed into blades. "Stand aside, beast," he challenges, holding out his sword in defiance. Uriel rushes, hacking at the Magog furiously. The creature evades most of the strikes and each time counters with more powerful and deadly blows. Uriel winces each time contact is made, but he pushes past the pain and continues to fight against the incarnation of human sin. Haniel and two Yazda soldiers kneel beside Raphael, consuming him in the healing light of the Dukan Hellas spell. Uriel shouts out, Magog dodging his next strike and bringing a transformed arm down onto his right shoulder. The Yazda tries to counter, but the Magog whips his arm across the warrior's body, nearly cleaving him in two. The creature grins, kicking the defeated general aside. Uriel is filled with shame, barely clinging to life. His confidence is shattered, and all hope for their survival seems lost. "I was sure that I could fare better against this beast than some mortal." He looks up as the Magog has decided to finish him off after all. I deserve this end for my arrogance, Uriel thinks, closing his eyes in anticipation. Darkness suddenly begins to overtake the battlefield. The ground begins to freeze as a supernatural cold wave rolls in with the black. Your name is not on my list, General Uriel, a deep, ghostly voice says from the darkness. It cannot be, Uriel whispers, barely conscious. Sariel, general of the 5th Choir, descends the battlefield in a shroud of darkness, leader of the Reapers. He is also known as the Angel of Death.